The forest stretched like a shadowed ocean, dark and endless. Moonlight slipped between the twisted branches, casting silver patterns on the forest floor. Lyria moved quietly, her bare feet barely making a sound on the damp earth. She always felt safer in the wild than among the people of the kingdom, where whispers and stares followed her like invisible chains. Tonight, however, something felt different. The air pulsed with tension, as if the world itself was holding its breath. From a distance, she could see the soft glow of the castle. It was more than just stone and towers, it was a heart of magic, pulsing with an energy that seemed almost alive. The castle prepared for a grand event. The mating ritual. An ancient tradition of the Alpha King's kingdom. Every eligible woman was summoned to the ceremony, their presence a part of a mystical bond that determined the strength of the realm. But Lyria had received no invitation. Not a single word had reached her doorstep, no scroll or messenger. She was, as always, outside the world that called to her. Still, something pulled her closer. It was a feeling she could not name, a tug in her chest that made her steps faster, yet cautious. She had seen the young women of the kingdom preparing with careful excitement, their laughter echoing faintly through the forest like the ghost of joy she had never allowed herself. And she felt absent. Her hand brushed against the silver pendant around her neck, a gift from her mother long ago. It shimmered faintly, reacting to something invisible. Lyria frowned. She didn't understand why it reacted now, tonight, of all nights, but she could not resist the pull. Inside the castle, Kale, the Alpha King, stood in the grand hall. His tall figure was framed by the high windows, the moonlight catching the sharp edges of his jaw and the dark sweep of his hair. His eyes scanned the ritual circle, the grand formation of women, symbols, and magical wards that would ensure the binding of fates. Everything was perfect, except for one thing: his mate. He had felt her absence long before the ritual began, a hollow pull in his chest that no power or ritual could fill. He should have seen her, should have felt the warmth of the bond that was always meant to guide him, but she was missing, and the thought unsettled him more than any enemy could. The council of mystics murmured among themselves, sensing his unease. They had studied the prophecies, the ancient lines of fate, and knew the consequences if the ritual failed to unite the fated mates. A kingdom could falter, power could weaken, darkness could seep into the land. Yet, they dared not speak too loudly, for Kale's temper was legendary, and his eyes, when they fell upon one, could silence the bravest heart. Kale's hand tightened into a fist, his nails pressing into his palm. The room was quiet, but heavy with expectation. Every eye followed him, waiting, watching, wondering what the Alpha King would do when faced with a missing mate. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling with the controlled grace of a predator. Pride and duty battled with the unexpected surge of vulnerability that the emptiness left behind. Meanwhile, Lyria approached the castle gates. The walls rose like mountains against the starry sky, and the magic around them shimmered faintly, almost like a living shield. She hesitated, unsure if she should step closer. Every instinct screamed that she did not belong here, that she was not meant to walk among the chosen. And yet, the pull would not let her turn away. As she stepped into a moonlit clearing, a soft wind rose, carrying with it whispers she could not understand. Words, perhaps, or simply the echo of destiny calling her name. Her pendant glowed brighter, and a warmth spread through her chest. Fear and awe twisted together inside her, making her breath catch. She had never felt such a force, something old, something powerful, something meant only for her. Inside the hall, Kale closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel her not near yet, but unmistakably present. The air shifted, the magic of the ritual responding to her silent approach. His heart, so often armored against weakness, skipped. A primal instinct rose inside him. Not for power, not for control, but for recognition, for reunion with a presence he could not yet see. Outside, Lyria stepped closer to the gates, drawn as if by invisible chains. Shadows stretched and shifted, almost protective, almost warning her back. She did not falter. Something inside her recognized him, though she had never met him. She did not know his name, his face, his voice, yet the bond thrummed in her veins, awakening a strength and courage she did not know she had. The castle doors opened with a soft creak, as if welcoming her. She froze for a moment, heart pounding. Beyond the doors, the ritual had begun. Torches flickered, casting gold light on intricate patterns inscribed into the stone floor. Women moved gracefully, their dresses shimmering, their faces set with purpose and expectation. Lyria felt out of place, but also necessary. Kale's eyes scanned the hall, searching. The ritual circle felt incomplete, a symphony missing its central note. And then he saw her, or perhaps he saw only a flicker of what was meant to be. A shadow at the edge, framed by moonlight. Hesitant, wary, the room seemed to hold its breath as their eyes met. Even before she fully entered, time slowed. The world seemed to fold in on itself, separating everything into two pieces, him and her. Kale felt an unfamiliar ache, a longing that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Lyria felt it too, the pull, the recognition, the undeniable truth that she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. The council gasped quietly, sensing the shift, knowing without words that the bond had found its mark. Kale's authority, his pride, did not falter, yet it softened. He was no longer just the Alpha King commanding a ritual. He was a man recognizing his other half. A piece of destiny that had been lost for too long. Lyria took a step forward, hesitant but resolute. The whispers of magic around her intensified, circling like invisible dancers, tugging her toward him. Her chest ached with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She had always felt out of place, always on the edges of life, but here, in this moment, she felt whole. Kale took a step toward her as well, moving through the hall with measured authority, yet his eyes never left her. Every muscle in his body spoke of command and strength, but beneath it, a pulse of something more human, more fragile, flickered. He had ruled kingdoms, fought enemies, and commanded loyalty, but this was a different kind of battle. One of heart and destiny, of fate and choice. The world around them seemed to hum, as if acknowledging what had been hidden for centuries. The ritual circle was no longer complete without her, and she was no longer just an observer. She was the missing note, the vital force the kingdom had been waiting for. And yet, neither spoke. Words would fail here. Actions would come later. For now, all that existed was the pull, the recognition, the silent acknowledgement that their lives were entwined in a way neither could escape. Then, a shadow flickered at the far edge of the hall. Someone or something watched them. The council stiffened. Kale's hand went to the hilt of his sword, instinct rising despite the wonder in his chest. Lyria's grip on her pendant tightened. The bond was powerful, undeniable, but there were forces in the kingdom that would not allow it to manifest easily. Kale's voice finally broke the silence, low and commanding, yet threaded with emotion. "Come forward," he said. Not a command, not exactly, but a recognition, a summoning. The moment stretched, a fragile, tense bridge between the past and the future, between fear and hope. Lyria nodded, stepping fully into the light, the pendant glowing now like a heartbeat. Every eye in the hall turned to watch her. The ritual had begun, and yet, the true purpose of it had only just revealed itself. Outside, the wind howled through the forest, carrying the whispers of destiny, of fates long hidden, and of a bond that would shake kingdoms. Somewhere, deep in the shadows, forces stirred, waiting to challenge what was about to unfold. And in that hall, under the watchful eyes of stars and ancient magic, Kale and Lyria stood, fated mates finally finding the first spark of recognition, unaware of the trials that lay ahead, unaware of the darkness that sought to tear them apart, but bound by a destiny that would not be denied. The ritual, it seemed, would wait no longer. The hall seemed to hold its breath. Lyria stepped fully into the circle of light, her pendant glowing steadily as though it recognized the presence of Kale. The women around them paused in their movements, sensing that something ancient and powerful had shifted. Kale's gaze never left her, sharp and commanding, yet softened by a flicker of awe and recognition. The ritual had begun, but the true binding, the connection that would unite fated mates, remained unfulfilled. Lyria's heart raced. Every instinct screamed that she did not belong here, that she was stepping into a world of power and danger far beyond her understanding. Yet a part of her, the part she had never fully known, thrummed with certainty. She was meant to be here. She could feel it in the hum of the air, in the way the magic around them leaned toward her like a loyal companion. Kale stepped closer, his movements slow, measured, as though every step carried both authority and care. "You are the one missing," he said quietly, his voice deep, low, and steady despite the tension that rippled through him. "I should have sensed you sooner. The bond, it calls me to you, and yet you were hidden." Lyria's eyes widened. She had felt a pull toward him since she first glimpsed the castle, a force she could not explain. But hearing him speak, acknowledging her existence, made the pull almost unbearable. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why me? Why now?" Kale's eyes softened, yet a shadow lingered behind them. "You are the mate I have been bound to, as the prophecy foretold. But some power, an old curse kept you hidden. Until this moment, you were lost to me." The words made Lyria's chest ache. Lost. Hidden. She had always felt apart from the world, never knowing why she was different, never feeling truly seen. And now, in a single glance and a single sentence, Kale made her feel recognized, necessary, and powerful. But there was no time for explanations. The hall trembled slightly, as if the magic around them responded to their recognition. Outside, shadows stirred along the walls, and in the corners of the windows, not all eyes were welcoming. Some forces in the kingdom had long waited for such a moment of weakness, ready to strike and test the Alpha King. Kale sensed it before it fully arrived. His instincts as a leader, protector, and warrior sharpened. "Stay close," he said, his voice commanding yet edged with caution. "There are those who will try to interfere with this bond. I will not allow it." Lyria nodded, gripping her pendant. It seemed to pulse in rhythm with the beat of her heart. She did not yet understand the depth of her own powers, but the bond with Kale stirred something ancient within her. She felt strength rising, a power that responded to the recognition of destiny. For the first time, she understood that she was not merely a witness to fate, she was its instrument. Outside the hall, figures cloaked in shadow moved quietly. A rival faction of nobles, envious and ambitious, had long sought to weaken Kale's authority. The disappearance of the mate was the perfect opportunity. Now, sensing her arrival, they readied their plans. Yet they underestimated one thing. The bond between fated mates could not be disrupted easily. Kale moved through the hall like a shadow of strength. Every gesture, every step, radiated control. And yet, the pull he felt toward Lyria unsettled even him. He had ruled this kingdom with iron will, commanded loyalty, and faced countless enemies. But the recognition of a fated mate was a vulnerability unlike any other. It demanded trust, patience, and surrender qualities he had seldom allowed himself to show. Lyria felt it too. Her fear battled with longing. She wanted to turn and flee, to escape the scrutiny of the ritual, the council, and the eyes of the kingdom. And yet, something deeper, older, demanded she stay. The pendant flared with light, warm and insistent, as if urging her forward. She felt drawn to Kale, not simply because of fate, but because the bond awakened something raw and undeniable within her. "Come," Kale said, extending a hand. His voice was firm but gentle, an invitation rather than a command. "Do not fear this bond. It is our strength, if we allow it." Lyria hesitated, Trust did not come easily. The world had taught her to be cautious, to rely only on herself, and yet, something in Cale's gaze promised safety, promised understanding, and a future she had never dared to imagine. She placed her hand in his, and the moment the skin met, a shock of energy pulsed through her. The pendant glowed brighter, casting silver light that danced across the hall. The council gasped softly. The magic recognized the awakening bond. The women in the circle bowed slightly, acknowledging the invisible power, now linking Cale and Lyria. Even the torches seemed to flicker with renewed light, as if the very elements of the kingdom responded to the emergence of the fated connection. But not all eyes were welcome. From the shadowed corners, dark figures stirred, invisible to all but those attuned to ancient magic. Their intentions were clear: disrupt, manipulate, and exploit. They had waited for this moment for years, and now, the awakening of the mate threatened their plans. Cale's senses sharpened. He could feel the subtle movements of unseen forces, the quiet hum of dark magic pressing at the edges of the hall. "They watch," he murmured, his voice low, his gaze never leaving Lyria. "But they will not touch you. I will not allow it." Lyria nodded, her fear mixing with exhilaration. She felt alive in a way she had never felt before. As though every step, every heartbeat, every breath connected her to something vast, powerful, and eternal. She was no longer a girl hidden on the outskirts of the kingdom. She was a part of something greater, and she was not alone. As the ritual progressed, Cale guided Lyria through the circle, his hand steady on hers. The women, the symbols, the wards, they all seemed to shift subtly in response to their bond. Every movement, every breath, resonated with energy. Neither had fully understood, yet both felt instinctively. The shadowed figures outside the hall made their move. A subtle tremor ran through the castle, almost imperceptible, yet enough to alert Cale. His hand tightened around Lyria's, and he whispered, "Stay close." His voice carried a weight of command, a promise of protection, and an unspoken desire that made her heart race. Lyria felt her powers stir. A warmth rose from her chest, radiating outward, touching the edges of the hall. The shadowy forces faltered at the presence of the awakened bond. Unsure of how to proceed against a power neither fully understood, she felt both fear and exhilaration. The bond with Cale amplified her courage, her abilities, and her resolve. The ritual circle began to hum with energy, the magic responding to the synchronization of their bond. Cale's voice guided her, calm and steady, even as danger pressed at the edges of reality. "Trust it," he murmured. "Trust us. Trust yourself." Lyria closed her eyes, letting the fear fall away. She focused on the pull between them, the invisible thread of destiny, and the warmth of his hand in hers. The magic coursed through her, awakening every hidden corner of her being. She felt powerful, whole, and undeniably connected to the Alpha King before her. Suddenly, the doors to the hall burst open. Figures cloaked in dark robes moved quickly, their intent unmistakable. They sought to disrupt the ritual, to seize Lyria, to challenge Cale. But the moment they stepped forward, the energy between the fated mates surged outward like a protective tide. The intruders faltered, thrown back by a force they could not comprehend. Cale's eyes blazed with controlled fury. He stepped forward, his presence commanding the room. "You will not touch her," he said, his voice resonating like steel. "This bond is not yours to break." Lyria felt the energy of the hall align with him, her powers intertwining with his, amplifying strength, courage, and determination. Together, they formed a shield against the dark forces. Their bond not just emotional, but mystical and tangible. The intruders retreated, but not without leaving a chilling promise. The challenge was far from over. Outside the hall, the shadows whispered, plotting, waiting for the next opportunity. The bond had awakened, yes, but its survival would demand courage, trust, and strength that neither Cale nor Lyria fully understood yet. Kale turned to her, his expression softer now, a mixture of pride, awe, and unspoken longing. "You survived the first test," he said quietly, "but this is only the beginning. Others will come. The bond. It must grow stronger if we are to protect it." Lyria nodded, her chest still racing. She felt fear. Yes, but also exhilaration. She had stepped into a world of power, magic, and destiny, and for the first time, she knew she belonged. Together, they could face whatever came next. Yet both knew that the trials ahead would test not only their strength, but their hearts. The ritual had begun in earnest, but the kingdom outside the hall, full of intrigue, jealousy, and ancient rivalries, waited silently for the next move. And in the shadows, eyes unseen watched the bond awaken, promising that the path ahead would be filled with danger, challenge, and the need for unbreakable trust. The hall, once filled with the soft glow of torches and the murmurs of the council, now thrummed with tension. Lyria and Kale stood side by side, their hands still linked, their bond a radiant pulse in the center of the ritual circle. The first attempt to challenge their connection had failed, but the air was heavy with the knowledge that darker trials were yet to come. The shadowed figures outside had retreated, but the threat they carried lingered like a storm waiting on the horizon. Kale's eyes never left Lyria. Every breath she took seemed synchronized with his own, as though an invisible thread guided them both. "You feel it, don't you?" he asked quietly. His voice, usually so commanding, now carried something softer, almost questioning. The bond, it grows stronger, but it demands more than presence. It demands trust, surrender, and courage. Lyria nodded, her chest still racing from the surge of energy they had both felt. "I feel it," she whispered. "I feel it pulling me, guiding me. But it scares me. I don't know what I'm capable of yet." Kale's gaze softened. "Fear is natural," he said. "Even I have felt it. But strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is moving forward despite it." His hand tightened slightly around hers, sending a wave of reassurance through her. "Together, we can face whatever comes." As if on cue, a sudden chill swept through the hall. The torches flickered, and the intricate symbols inscribed into the floor glowed faintly, reacting to the approaching presence. From the shadowed corners, a figure stepped forward, a woman cloaked in midnight robes, her eyes sharp and cold, her aura radiating ancient magic. "You have awakened what was hidden," the woman said, her voice like a blade slicing through the air. "But do not think the bond alone will save you. The ritual is not yours yet. You must prove your worth, or lose what you barely understand." Kale moved instinctively in front of Lyria, his stance protective. "Speak clearly," he demanded, his voice commanding the attention of everyone in the hall. "Who are you? And what do you want?" The woman's lips curved into a thin, unreadable smile. "I am the guardian of the curse that hid the mate. I have watched, waited, and tested many. The bond between you is strong. Yes, but strength alone will not suffice. The trials begin now." Lyria felt her pulse quicken. Trials. She had expected challenges, of course, but nothing had prepared her for a confrontation like this. Yet beneath the fear, beneath the uncertainty, a spark ignited a recognition of her own latent power, and the sense that she had always been more than she had known. Kale's voice was steady, unyielding. "Then we accept your trials." Together, the woman raised her hands, and the floor beneath them shivered as if the castle itself responded. Shadows stretched and twisted, forming shapes that were both familiar and terrifying visions of past failures. Fears given form, doubts made tangible. Lyria saw herself reflected in them, her insecurities magnified, and she felt a pang of fear. Kale's hand on hers sent warmth through her chest, grounding her. "Do not let them control you," he murmured. "We are stronger than this. We are connected." Together, they stepped forward, facing the shadows. Each figure that rose seemed to mirror their deepest fears. Lyria saw visions of herself alone, abandoned, powerless. Cale saw the weight of his responsibility failing, the kingdom crumbling, the bond lost before it had fully formed. But as they confronted the shadows, the bond between them flared, a brilliant light that pushed back the darkness. The woman in the robes watched silently, her expression unreadable. "Impressive," she said finally, "but courage alone is not enough. You must understand each other, fully, to overcome what lies ahead. The bond is more than instinct, it is trust, it is surrender, it is knowing one another in ways words cannot describe." Lyria took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment. She could feel Cale's heartbeat, steady and strong, matching her own. She could feel his strength, his patience, his willingness to protect and to trust. And she realized something profound. The bond did not diminish her independence. It did not control her. It awakened her. She was not merely connected to him, she was powerful because of him, and he was strong because of her. Opening her eyes, she met his gaze fully for the first time since the ritual had begun. "I trust you," she said simply. Cale's lips curved into a small, rare smile, and he tightened his grip slightly. "And I trust you," he replied. The moment was small, almost fragile, yet it radiated power. The shadows that had loomed before them flickered, uncertain, as if recognizing that the bond had passed its first true test. But the trial was far from over. The woman in the robes lifted her hands again, and the hall was filled with a sound like rushing wind, the pressure of unseen magic pressing down. From the corners of the room, dark shapes began to gather, moving faster, their intent clear. These were not mere illusions, they were creatures of ancient magic, bound to challenge the fated mates, to test their strength, courage, and unity. Cale's eyes narrowed. "Stay close," he commanded. "Do not let them separate us." Lyria nodded, drawing strength from his words, from the bond, from the knowledge that they faced this together. The creatures lunged, shadows made flesh, and the hall erupted into chaos. Torches swayed, symbols on the floor glowed fiercely, and the energy of the ritual surged outward, responding to the bond. Cale moved with precision, deflecting attacks, shielding Lyria, and directing energy where needed. Lyria, though frightened, felt a courage she had never known. Her hands glowed with the power the bond awakened in her, and she met each threat with calm focus, her abilities amplifying Cale's strength rather than conflicting with it. The creatures recoiled, unprepared for the synergy between the fated mates. Every movement, every strike, every shared breath seemed to resonate through the hall, pushing back the shadows. Lyria's fear melted into exhilaration, her power flowing naturally, intuitively, strengthened by the bond she shared with Cale. The woman in the robes watched, nodding slowly. "You begin to understand," she said. "The bond is more than connection. It is a force. But there is one more test. One that will challenge your hearts, not just your strength." Before anyone could speak, the shadows shifted, forming a single, immense figure, tall, cloaked in darkness, eyes glowing with a malicious light. It was a manifestation of the curse itself. Born from centuries of magic, designed to keep the mate hidden, its presence alone made the air heavy, thick with fear and tension. Cale took a step in front of Lyria, his hand still gripping hers. "We face it together," he said, his voice steady, unwavering. "Do not let it scare you. Our bond is stronger than this darkness." Lyria nodded, her chest tight with fear but filled with determination. She had come too far to falter now. The creature advanced, shadows swirling around it like a storm, and the hall seemed to shrink under its presence. Every instinct screamed to flee, but she stayed rooted, trusting Cale, trusting the bond, trusting herself. The energy between them flared brilliantly, a light so strong it drove back the darkness at the edges. The creature hissed, recoiling from the power of their unity. Lyria felt a surge of confidence. The bond was no longer a fragile spark, it was a blazing fire, fueled by trust, courage, and the recognition that they were meant to face this together. Kale's voice was calm and commanding. "Now, Lyria, stand with me. Do not falter." She met his gaze, drawing every ounce of strength from the connection. And together, they projected their energy outward. The light collided with the darkness, the hall shaking as the creature roared in fury. Every fear, every doubt, every shadow of the past pushed back, but their bond held, unbreakable, shining brighter with each moment of resistance. The creature faltered, then shattered, dissolving into mist that vanished into the night. The hall was silent except for the sound of their breathing, their hands still clasped, their hearts still pounding in perfect harmony. The woman in the robes stepped forward, her expression unreadable but her tone approving. "You have passed the trials of fear and strength," she said. "But remember, this is only the beginning. The bond is awakened. Yes, but the true challenges of love, trust, and destiny lie ahead." Kale released a slow breath, his shoulders relaxing slightly. He turned to Lyria, his eyes soft but intense. "You were incredible," he said, a rare warmth in his voice. "We faced them together, and we will face whatever comes next together as well." Lyria smiled, though exhaustion tugged at her limbs. "I never imagined I could do this," she admitted. "I never imagined I could be more than I was." Kale nodded. "And yet, here you are. We are stronger for it. You have found your place, and we have found each other." The hall seemed to sigh, the magic settling, the bond glowing quietly, a promise of power and unity yet to come. But outside, beyond the castle walls, shadows still lingered. The trials of the kingdom were far from over. Rival factions, ancient curses, and the unseen threats that haunted the night had not vanished, they had only been delayed. Kale and Lyria knew this. And yet, for the first time, they faced the unknown together. United not only by destiny, but by trust, courage, and the bond that now burned brighter than any darkness could touch. The night air hung thick over the castle, heavy with anticipation. Though the hall had quieted after the trials of fear and shadow, Kale and Lyria both knew the true challenge was yet to come. Outside, the wind whispered secrets among the trees, carrying the promise of confrontation. The bond between them glowed softly, a pulse of warmth in the darkness, but the shadows of the kingdom were far from gone. Kale stood at the edge of the ritual circle, his hand still holding Lyria's. His gaze scanned the horizon, sharp and alert. But his thoughts were centered on her, the mate who had appeared as if called by destiny itself. Every breath he took reminded him of the bond they now shared, and every heartbeat seemed to resonate with hers, in rhythm, in sync, in a way that no distance could break. "We have awakened the bond," Kale said quietly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Lyria to hear. "But the curse that hid you, it is not gone. It will test us one last time." Lyria nodded, her grip on his hand firm. "I am ready," she said. "Whatever it is, we face it together." A hush fell over the castle grounds as a dark shadow detached itself from the forest. The air shimmered with unnatural energy, and the trees themselves seemed to lean back, recoiling from the presence. The shadow moved with purpose, shifting and changing, a mass of darkness that seemed alive. It was the curse itself, given form a force older than the castle, older than the kingdom, tied to the very fate of fated mates. Kale's eyes narrowed. "Stay close," he commanded. "Do not let it separate us. Our strength is in our bond." Lyria felt her pulse quicken, but she did not step back. She drew power from the connection between them, feeling warmth and courage flow from Kale into her, and from her into him. The bond was no longer a gentle pulse, it was a roaring fire, illuminating the darkness that threatened to consume them. The shadow surged forward, twisting into monstrous shapes. It hissed and roared, testing, probing, trying to find the fear in their hearts. Lyria met it with calm determination, her pendant glowing brighter, casting silver light that cut through the darkness. The creatures it formed lunged at them, but every attack was met with precision, courage, and the undeniable synergy of two souls connected by fate. Kale moved like a storm of strength and skill, deflecting blows, shielding Lyria, and directing their combined energy against the darkness. Lyria followed instinctively, her powers flowing naturally. Amplified by the bond that pulsed between them, they moved as one, their timing perfect, their trust complete. "You are stronger together than I imagined," a voice said, echoing from the shadows. It was the guardian of the curse, watching the battle unfold. "But strength alone is not enough. You must embrace your hearts, your fears, your truths, to break what has lasted centuries." Lyria glanced at Kael, seeing not just the warrior, but the man who carried the weight of the kingdom. The man who had faced countless enemies, yet now stood vulnerable before the force that tested their bond. Her heart swelled with understanding and compassion. "We can do this," she said softly. "Together." Kael nodded, and in that moment, the shadows surged once more, converging on them with a force that seemed unstoppable. But Lyria did not falter. She stepped forward, letting her power flow freely, her hands glowing with a light born of trust and love. Kael mirrored her, and together, their energy combined, forming a shield and a spear all at once, a force that pushed back the darkness with every heartbeat. The curse hissed and roared, twisting into shapes that reflected their deepest fears. Lyria saw visions of herself alone, cast out, powerless. Kael saw the kingdom falling, his authority shattered, the bond lost before it could truly form, but neither faltered. The bond was no longer a gentle thread. It was an unbreakable chain, forged from courage, trust, and the undeniable truth of fate. "Now," Kael said, his voice carrying both command and love, "focus with me. Together, we end this." Lyria met his gaze, feeling the fire of their connection ignite fully. Every doubt, every fear, every shadow of the past was met with the light of their bond. They projected their energy outward, the glow of their connection cutting through the darkness like dawn breaking over a stormy night. The shadow shrieked, twisting violently, trying to resist the force of their union. But the bond could not be broken. Kael and Lyria moved closer, their hands still entwined, their hearts synchronized. The power they wielded together was not just magic, it was recognition, trust, and acceptance. It was love and destiny intertwined, a force that no curse could withstand. The darkness began to dissipate, the forms of the creatures fading into mist. The guardian of the curse watched silently, her expression unreadable, until finally, she spoke. "You have proven yourselves. The bond is complete, and the curse is broken." Kael lowered his hand slightly, his chest heaving with exertion. He turned to Lyria, his eyes soft but intense. "We did it," he said quietly, awe and relief in his voice. "Together," Lyria smiled, exhaustion and exhilaration mingling in her expression. I never imagined I could be this strong," she admitted. "But with you, I feel whole." Kael stepped closer, his presence both commanding and tender. "You are whole because you were never meant to be anything less," he said. "The bond awakened what was always within you, and now we face the future together." The hall seemed to shimmer with newfound light. The ritual circle glowed softly, the symbols and wards responding to the strength of the bond. The women in the circle bowed in respect, acknowledging the power of the fated mates. The kingdom itself seemed to exhale, the ancient magic settling into a state of balance once more. But beyond the castle walls, the night sky sparkled with stars, and a whisper of prophecy carried on the wind. The mate who was lost shall awaken a power greater than the crown itself. It was a reminder that destiny was never fully complete, that challenges would always come. But for now, the bond had triumphed. Kael turned to Lyria, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. We have faced the curse, the trials, and the shadows, and we have survived, stronger than before. His voice softened. Stronger together. Lyria's eyes glistened, her heart full. Stronger together, she repeated. It was more than a statement, it was a promise, a vow, and a truth. They both understood deeply. The night was calm now, the tension easing, yet the magic around them hummed with potential, waiting for the next challenge, the next test of trust, courage, and love. Kale and Lyria stood side by side, hands entwined, hearts synchronized, a bond forged in shadows and strengthened in light. I never thought I would find someone who understands me, who sees me, Kale admitted softly. But you are my mate, and nothing will change that. Lyria smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. And you are mine, she replied. The bond is ours, and together, we can face anything. The castle seemed to glow faintly around them. The magic acknowledging the bond. The unity. The triumph over darkness. The trials had ended, the curse had been broken, and the fated mates had discovered the true strength of their connection not just in power, but in trust, understanding, and love. And yet, as they stood together in the quiet aftermath, a sense of destiny lingered. The stars above shone with a brilliance that promised more. Whispers of challenges, adventures, and growth. The bond was awakened, unbreakable, and eternal. But the journey was only beginning. Kale took a deep breath, pulling Lyria close. The kingdom is safe for now, he murmured, but we must be ready. Shadows will return, trials will come, but as long as we are together, nothing can stand against us. Lyria rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Then we face it together, she said, her voice calm, determined, and filled with certainty. The night air shimmered, and the pendant around her neck glowed one final time, a heartbeat of silver light that pulsed with the rhythm of their bond. The kingdom had witnessed the awakening of fate, the triumph over darkness, and the birth of a connection that would define generations to come. Kale and Lyria stood in the center of the ritual circle, hands clasped, hearts bound, eyes reflecting both the victory of the moment and the promise of what lay ahead. The curse had been broken, the trials had been endured, and the bond, their bond, was eternal.